And I'm like, that's not an actual dessert you could serve to anybody ever. A, their heart would close up, and B, it's 6.5 feet tall.
This sounds like a challenge for me.
No, because I want to keep doing this show and I don't want you dead.
I think you underestimate my ability to eat sugar and survive.
Welcome back to Cartridge Based Radio. I'm Donald, once again joined by Brad.
Hello.
Brad, let's talk about the most hated video game company in the entire world, EA.
Okay.
Once upon a time, EA was not hated.
No, they used to be the favorite company of a lot of people, including myself.
We decided to take a month and remind people that EA used to actually care, but not care about things like loot boxes and more loot boxes.
Or destroying your favorite franchises. Or buying up your favorite development studios and destroying them.
Rest in peace, Visceral. So, we picked 4 games for we're going to have a month-long talk on EA.
Back when they were good.
We will leave opinions of their current status more or less alone right now. But today we are going to talk about one of our favorite topics, helicopters.
Yes. So, Donald, I got a question for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Do you know what the best-selling game in the history of Electronic Arts was as of 1992?
Desert Strike?
You're right. It was Desert Strike. It wasn't Madden. It wasn't NBA Live or NHL hockey or any other sports games. It was Desert Strike.
Because it's a cool helicopter game.
Yes.
It's hard to define the genre to place Desert Strike in, because it's a little bit simulation, it's a little bit action, and then it's a lot of bit inventory management.
There's definitely a good amount of that in there. Your number one enemy in this game isn't Scud missiles or tanks or anti-aircraft cannons. It's fuel consumption.
Yeah, I was under the opinion that a helicopter could fly a full mission before having to refuel, but this game taught me it can fly about 9 feet and then it needs to pick a barrel of crude oil off the ground.
3 barrels all bundled together.
It's very nice that the enemy has the equipment set up where you can easily snatch this kind of thing up and just refuel your helicopter while flying.
Yeah.
Which brings up a question. Does the co-pilot get out and have to manage that? Or is there just a bay in the bottom of helicopters for 3 barrels of oil?
There must be some kind of internal mechanism. Yeah, the way that you load the fuel onto your helicopter is with a winch with a big hook on it that you just, lower out the side of the helicopter. So apparently the people on the ground, for whatever reason, are also arranging their oil barrels to be winchable. So apparently, it's not just your helicopter set up this way. That must just be how they transport them around. Instead of putting them on trucks or something, they just hook a winch up to them and then drag them around the desert for a while until they get to where they're going.
And they don't even eject the empty barrels. I guess they just keep them. But also they drop a ladder and POWs can climb up into your Apache helicopter.
They drop a rope ladder out of the helicopter, and if it touches a POW, he's just captured, he just kind of resigns to his fate and climbs up the ladder. I
know, I thought you were rescuing those guys.
Well, it's kind of the same process, whether you're rescuing a hostage or capturing an enemy soldier. You drop the ladder out and hit them with the ladder, and they scamper right up it.
Well, I mean, if you're the enemy, wouldn't you want to go for a cool Apache helicopter ride?
Yeah, I mean, the enemies that you face in Jungle Strike don't have anything cool like that. They tend to live in tents and fight you with RVs.
So, we're mainly going to talk about Jungle Strike, the sequel to Desert Strike. But a little bit of Desert Strike has to be discussed here at the top. Because you are fighting the Mad Leader.
Yes, in some anonymous desert kingdom. He has Scud missiles. He dumps all his oil into the Gulf, which doesn't have any specific name. It's just the Gulf. I guess they couldn't get the license for Operation Desert Storm. It's almost like this dystopian future where, like, the U.S. goes to war and, like, trademarks it, and then you have to pay to talk about it.
So Mad Leader decides to show you how mad he is in the opening cinema. And he's in a room with a bunch of wooden barrels. And one has an open top, and there's a man hanging by his wrists, and Mad Leader is single-handedly lowering him into the vat. And it's bubbling and steaming, but it's a wooden vat. And he lowers the man all the way in, and then he looks at the camera and smiles.
He is so happy to have done that. You don't see what's actually in the big wooden barrel. But whatever it is that bubbles, it might just be champagne. Like, they talk about him torturing his enemies and stuff, but this might just be one of his allies, and they're having a party where they're like, I'm going to dunk you in a champagne bucket. And the other guy's like, all right, this is going to be awesome.
Maybe that's why he smiles. I mean, that party is just on fire.
Yeah, this is like, you know, a 2000s hip-hop video, but back on the Genesis in 1992.
And then you are treated to a mission briefing by Norman Schwarzkopf, who's not Norman Schwarzkopf, and he gives you a mission, and then he says you can do it any order you want. He gives you 3 stages of the mission, but then he's like, but I suggest you do it my way. It'll make life easier. The tone in Desert Strike is very serious military. You launch off the back of a boat. It's very cool. You just tap backwards, and the boat keeps floating away. And you're suddenly flying a helicopter, and it still feels really good to fly that helicopter.
Oh, yeah. You know, the first thing everybody does when they launch is they immediately declare war on the ocean and start shooting at it because it's there and you have bullets. And I would argue that if you play Desert Strike and you don't blow up every single structure in the game, you're not playing the game right.
No, you're not. And the second thing they do after they declare war on the water is attack the American encampment that you meet up with as soon as you exit the water, because you don't know what it is right away, and you blow up like 6 barrels of oil sitting right there, and you're like, oops, this is my bad, guys. And for some reason they have a World War II beach lander in that scene.
Yeah, they just had a couple of those left over. So, you know, who needs air transport or, you know, like modern marine warcraft? We're just going to take those boats from the beginning of Saving Private Ryan and run them right up on the shore.
Yeah, I mean, those inflatables are just so hard to use. So you do several missions and you stop the madman and you're victorious. So
one mission you also attack garbage trucks. So it's not 100% serious.
I'm sure we blew up their garbage trucks to disrupt sanitation, drive the people bonkers. So he's dead because you're awesome. And that's just basically our springboard to get into Jungle Strike, which I don't know how you go from that kind of simulation and then 2 years later you come with Jungle Strike, which at one point you're sitting in the Oval Office with your feet on the president's desk, reclining while he's giving you a mission briefing on a screen. Like, you are the coolest helicopter pilot ever, that they call you into the White House to just kick back and have the president give you a briefing.
Yeah. It's weird because all of this is done through cutscenes. They like digitized photos to put the characters in the game. And it's very clearly EA employees like wearing costumes. Like, I'm sure when I see the son of the desert madman talking to the notorious South American drug lord, like, I am sure that is 2 programmers from EA wearing like camouflage jackets.
From Value Village.
Yeah. The notorious South American drug lord, like, his main outfit is a black turtleneck and, like, a backwards baseball cap. Like, that's what you envision when you think about, like, notorious, like, cocaine smugglers.
The notorious South American drug lord is also very, very white.
Yes.
And the madman's son, this may shock you, looks like he's played by the madman from the first one.
Who's also very white. Like, he's got a mustache. And they're like, close enough. He looks just like Saddam Hussein. He actually looks like Sergeant Slaughter.
I mean, Sergeant Slaughter just got fed up with things and decided to set off a nuclear bomb off the peninsula of South America, which gets America worried about this act of terrorism. They never mentioned South America being worried that the bomb went off near South America. America's like, what about us? That's the first reaction of our government is, oh no, we're under attack. You're treated to a nice news report. It shows your guy kicking back in his apartment watching TV, and then he goes and kicks back and watches a mission briefing in the White House. Then you pick a co-pilot, and they have different stats. And then you take off your Apache helicopter from the lawn of the White House.
Yeah, like, they called you in there for a briefing, and they just had you, like, land your helicopter right on the front lawn. As far as I know, the White House is not an army base, so that's kind of a weird place to be launching off from, but sure. And your first mission, like, Washington is under attack. You know, you get called in for the briefing, and then it's interrupted because the South American terrorist organization has just shown up in Washington, D.C., and they're wrecking havoc.
So, a few problems with this. To get to D.C. from South America, you either have to do a water landing, which the Navy's not going to let you do, an air landing, which the Air Force isn't going to let you do, or cross basically the entire United States by land with your missiles and nuclear weapons, which the Army is not going to let you do.
You'd think they'd probably have some trouble at the border.
Yeah, like, what's in this van? Not a nuclear bomb? Okay, now that you said that, we're going to actually have to check.
The army that you're attacked by in the Washington level is this weird mix of, like, normal-looking vehicles, like station wagons and RVs, and then just, like, tanks and missile launchers. And it's like they couldn't decide if they're going to try to just sneak in, you know, using normal cars and stuff, or if they're just going to all-out attack. So you just imagine, like, this army, like, with a bunch of, like, vans pulling trailers, and the trailers have tanks on them, and they're like, oh, we're gonna sneak right in, this will be easy. They'll just see a bunch of normal looking cars, they won't look at the tank.
And it's those weird, like, bubbly RVs from the 60s.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of VW minibuses.
But they're fighting an Apache helicopter.
Not very effectively.
No. Basically, all you can do with an RV when being attacked by an Apache helicopter is die. That's your options.
I think my favorite part of this first level is you're at the White House, Washington's under attack. You don't stay to protect the president. They're like, oh, they might blow up the Jefferson Memorial. You better go out and save it.
One of my favorite things about the first level is when you take off your helicopter, it's in front of the White House, and the first thing I noticed is Pennsylvania Avenue was no longer there. it like had grown over in grass. And then the next, like, just a few feet away is the Washington Monument.
It's a very efficiently designed city.
You look out the window of the White House right at the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument, the Library of Congress. It's super nice.
So I'm going to read off the levels that take place in Jungle Strike, and we'll see if you pick up on something that I've noticed in this game. So the first level is Washington, D.C., and then the second level is the coast. The third level is a training camp that's just kind of in this, like, open field. The fourth level is a night mission. Fifth level is a city. Sixth level is the mountains and snow. And the seventh level is the jungle. So did you notice something about Jungle Strike that's a little unusual for a game named Jungle Strike?
I'm having trouble detecting what it might be. Wait. Brad, could it be that only one level is in the jungle?
Yeah, so that's 7 levels. There's an 8th, which also doesn't take place in the jungle. And then the 9th level is Washington again.
Wait, I have an answer for you.
Yes.
The opening cinema is painfully long in this game, and it shows monkeys having a good time in the jungle. And then it shows a wide shot of the jungle, and then you're looking at the monkeys through binoculars, and the madman's son is counting down, and then they blow up the island. Maybe the game is named after that opening where they strike a jungle island with a nuclear bomb.
That could be. It's a little confusing because it's called Jungle Strike, and the box cover is a picture of a helicopter, like, fighting in the jungle. And then almost all these levels aren't in the jungle. You get a whole bunch of different vehicles that aren't helicopters. Including the jungle level, you spend almost that entire level flying a stealth fighter for some reason. Which I guess controls just like a helicopter, because, like, you just hop behind the controls of that like it's no big deal.
I mean, sure. For years, the Air Force is saying there's no such thing as a UFO, but then your stealth bomber just sort of levitates and rotates like a helicopter. Very UFO-like. There's a fan boat.
Oh, yeah.
The first game was a helicopter game. That's all you flew. It was awesome. You don't look at the sequel and say, hey, what can we add that's not an awesome helicopter? The answer is never a fan boat.
Yeah, it's like everybody liked being the super weapon heavy, awesome, kills everything helicopter. What's even more awesome than that? A hovercraft.
Yeah, they gave you a new updated version of the helicopter, which that was cool. Oh, speaking of which, the title screen where it's asking you to press start,
yeah,
shows the helicopter zooming through a jungle, like endlessly, and it's awesome. But the scene that they're depicting in that title screen never plays out at all.
No, there is not actually a level in this game where you, like, fight in the jungle in your helicopter.
You think the stealth bomber would be at the night mission.
That would make more sense. You would also think that in the night mission you might use radar or something, but apparently our super awesome helicopter doesn't have that technology. So if you need to see anything, you just keep shooting and the explosions will light up the night for you.
Like, oh, that was a fuel barrel, but I know where to go.
It's burning very brightly, so that's on the plus side.
Now, when you're selecting your co-pilots at the beginning,
yeah,
there's 2 you can pick from, and then there's a bunch who are MIA. Is there a way to resolve that? Like, do you find them through pickups, or?
Yeah, they're basically hidden items in the different levels. So you fly around, you blow up a building or whatever, and they'll come running out, and you pick them up, and then you have a new co-pilot. And I guess your old co-pilot, like, gets dropped off at the prisoner of war camp with all your captures, and you're like, well, just tell him you're with me.
Well, there's 2 co-pilots to start with. There's one who's good at picking things up, and there's another one who improves your aim. I wonder if anyone thought they're obviously going to pick the one who's good at picking things up.
That first level has a mission where you have to get the president out of Washington that's under attack. So you're following his limo around and shooting the enemies that are near him. And you really don't want to pick the guy who's not good at shooting accurately, because you can't pick up the president with the winch. So you get the guy who can't aim, and he's going to shoot the president, and then you're going to be in all kinds of trouble.
I had a question about that whole scenario. Like, we have to get this president out of Washington. So we're going to have a motorcade. Only if there was another way to get him out of Washington in a highly advanced armored air vehicle that's loaded down with weapons that has 2 seats. We can't find that anywhere in a game about a helicopter.
No, they should just keep something like that parked right on the front lawn for emergencies like this, but they didn't.
And they didn't even send a decoy motorcade. They just sent the one. They're like, they'll never figure this out. They're in Winnebagos.
Maybe you are the decoy. Maybe the expectation is that all the terrorists attacking the city are going to say, well, he must be in the attack helicopter. It'd be stupid to put him in the limo.
Yeah, that's a good point. And why, when Washington is being attacked, is there only one Apache? Shouldn't you send all the Apaches?
Well, because you're already at the White House, hanging out, putting your feet up on the desk. It's like your own private jet, except it's a war machine that's loaded to the teeth and can pretty much wipe out a city by itself.
And does your co-pilot just sit in the co-pilot seat after you park it on the roof of your building? Like, do you let him come in and watch TV with you, or?
He doesn't have White House clearance. He has to wait. It's fully armed, too. Like, the Secret Service just lets you fly and land a fully armed gunship on the front lawn of the White House. Like, it's fine.
It's like when we were young, you can't do this anymore. Our parents would just leave us in the car while they ran in to the grocery store.
Yeah.
And you'd always climb in the front seat and start playing with the radio and the wipers and whatnot. So he's in a fully armed Apache. He could just climb up front and be, wonder what this does, and just blow up the front gate of the White House and be like, oh, sorry, guys.
The entire first level's just a false alarm. Like, your co-pilot got bored waiting, accidentally fired off a missile, and they're like, the city's under attack! Defend the Jefferson Memorial!
And those were just tourists coming to see the Jefferson Memorial in their RV trip across the U.S.
And you killed the hell out of them.
It was the Johnsons from Oklahoma. They died in D.C. by Apache attack.
That explains so much. You know, I kind of wonder about this game because the way it's presented is very kind of gung-ho, pro-military, pro-American intervention. You know, like you're at the White House and you're getting briefed and you as the pilot's like, well, it's a good thing they didn't cut the military budget too much. And, you know, it seems like very like, yay, the military's awesome. But then, like, if you look at what you're doing in the game, like, a lot of it is basically atrocities. The fifth level that takes place in the city, all the civilians have been hidden inside churches. And the way it's presented to you is they're being held prisoner in these churches, free them. But it's like, no, like their city's under attack by a helicopter. They went to the church to hide. And then you blow up the church and capture them and round them up into a camp. I almost feel like it's, you know how like RoboCop is like super violent, but it's actually supposed to be like satire and it's kind of a critique of ultra-violence?
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if this game isn't secretly like a satire of military intervention, and it's just like you're doing all these horrible things and it's presenting it as, oh no, you're helping. Like you just attack this other country with your helicopter because they did a bomb test, and like you're taking out cities and civilians and
they did a bomb test not in any of your sovereign territories.
Yeah.
They just did a bomb test. And you can attack the UN in this game if you want.
I mean, you're not supposed to.
Yeah, but they let you do it. They shouldn't let you do it. There should be a penalty like, whoa, buddy, stop attacking the relief vans. And you're like, but they might have missiles on board and I need to restock.
If you need to restock your weapons, then just go blow up some civilian houses like the rest of us.
Then we will provide them with aid.
The whole second half of the game becomes like a quest to track down all the nuclear bomb parts. You have to get the plutonium, and you have to get the reactor core, and the detonators, and the scientists that would work on it. And it's just like, you don't need all the parts to stop the bomber. You just need to take away one thing. And they're like, well, better get the scientists, better get the plutonium. It seems like more likely that you're trying to build a bomb than prevent somebody else from building one. Like, this game is basically, they set off a bomb in South America and you're like, oh, we could steal all the parts to make another one of those.
Maybe the helicopter pilot has just gone rogue. There's a third part, Urban Strike, which I've never played. Maybe it's him assaulting, like, Los Angeles with his Apache and nuclear bomb. I don't know.
I played Urban Strike, and I don't really remember it. Compared to the first two, it's not quite up there. It's just sort of okay. I beat it in a day and sent it back to Blockbuster, and I was like, yeah, that's fine.
Jungle Strike seems like they took the game more of an action movie route.
Yeah.
The first one took an actual... besides the garbage trucks, it actually tried to be like, this is Operation Desert Storm adjacent.
Yeah.
I think the opening cinema of Desert Strike actually has digitized photos of Operation Desert Storm from, like, the news. Like, the missile trucks sitting outside of the oil wells and all that.
Yeah.
And then Jungle Strike, you got your feet up on the desk at the Oval Office, which I think is a no-no.
Yeah, but, you know, you're the hotshot helicopter pilot that single-handedly won the Iraq War, so you can put your feet up on the desk.
I guess if you single-handedly win an entire war, you get to hang out with the Contra guys.
The bad dudes and eat burgers.
The second game feels as good as the first one as far as control goes. I mean, they got that down. I imagine it carried on over to Urban Strike because I don't know why you'd change the engine.
Yeah.
Jungle Strike, though, putting you in different vehicles but still having it control like a helicopter, is just so bizarre.
It didn't really work. If you're not changing the controls, it's also not super necessary. Like, the first time you do it, you're like, oh, cool, now I'm on a motorcycle. It still plays the same way. Like, it would be a much better feature if it really changed the gameplay around.
The one thing that drives me nuts in this game, though, in Desert Strike, the helicopter blade noise.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't sound like a thump, thump, thump that you would imagine. It's like a squeaky thing, but every time you fire a missile or a bullet, it cuts out and then it comes back.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if they ran out of memory or what, but that is like the sound effect that's the most frustrating in this game.
The weapon sounds are pretty convincing. So, contrast it against the helicopter sound, which sounds like your helicopter's being powered by like a lawnmower engine that's really straining. It's got the gas tank of a lawnmower also, so...
Yeah, maybe that explains why it's always out of gas. It's still really good, and it was a new IP that just came out of nowhere from EA.
Yeah, back when they used to do stuff like that.
I believe it was on the Amiga, wasn't it?
Yeah, EA got their start. First of all, they were small. They weren't the behemoth that they are now. They were a small company. Their first console was the Sega Genesis. Prior to that, they were a PC publisher. So when they got onto the Genesis, they didn't have a lot of games to work with. So they started out just porting over PC titles that they had published and making them work on the Genesis. Populous was one of their very first titles. The Immortal followed kind of the same route. A lot of their early games, even if they were designed for the console, still had kind of that PC influence. They didn't play like other console titles. It was such a exciting, different publisher from what you were getting on consoles at the time.
Weird, like, PC strategy games like Star Control, but you could get it on Genesis.
Yeah.
A keyboard-heavy game. Here, play it with a gamepad.
Yeah, it didn't always work. But it was surprising how often it did, really. You'd expect that it would never work, just because it wasn't the kind of games that people were used to playing on a console, and they weren't really designed for that control scheme. But, there are a surprising number of really good games that came out from the early Electronic Arts. They did a port of Might and Magic, which is, kind of weird. It wasn't the ideal way to play Might and Magic, but it was playable. You didn't have like a Western-style RPG at the time. It was all JRPGs. A lot more of the publishers and developers were American companies, and, it was a different style of gaming.
PC gaming back then had a look to it that was unlike the console ones. Like, Nintendo was doing bright and colorful, and PC just went like with a gritty, dirty look. And EA just brought that right home to the console, and it still looks so good.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And part of that is the hardware, and part of that is just the culture. Like Nintendo was a lot of Asian developers. It's a different culture and a different aesthetic and style of art. And the PC was a lot more Western, and it looked different.
EA did so much work in the early console days to get lots of games out there for them.
Yeah. This month, to preview it, we're doing 4 shows for EA month. This is the first one. Next week, we're going to talk about Rings of Power, which is one of those PC-influenced games that is a really neat game that we'll get into next week. The week after that is Road Rash. And then to have some fun, we're going to... And also to show that this, even back then, was not a flawless company, we're going to wrap up the month with Shaq Fu.
Look forward to that one.
Oh, absolutely.
So, do you have any final thoughts on the Strikes series?
Not really any final thoughts so much as just, personal experiences. This is a game that I got over the summer in between 8th and 9th grade. And I played this game like all summer. It didn't take that long to beat. It didn't take me all summer to get through it. But even after I finished it, there's just so much replay value and just like going through and trying to do the missions out of order or like blow up every building, see, what kind of crazy stuff you could get away with. Sometimes you find some secrets. There's a crashed plane in the first level of Desert Strike. Jungle Strike came out the next summer, and that was a whole next summer for me. So, I spent a lot of time in these games and enjoyed it greatly.
And this is easily a game that, by whatever means, you can go back and play now and just have a lot of fun. They're very well built. that quality design still holds up now.
Yeah, definitely.
So use some Strike games. I can't really speak to Urban Strike. Desert Strike is good.
I don't really remember Urban Strike, but considering that I spent like a whole summer playing Desert Strike, and then a whole summer playing Jungle Strike, and then most of a day playing Urban Strike, I would say that it probably doesn't really hold up as much as the first two.
So that will do it for the first week of EA month and Desert Strike and Jungle Strike. I am Donald. That was Brad, and we will see you next week.
Stop dying.
I'm trying so hard.
You know how hard this show's going to be to edit?
Yes, Brad. Yes, I do know how hard this show